Poppy on the mic, now let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Will to Steph, we hit it again. All better chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, we're roll better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It's your boy, it's Guardy 3. And of course, like every week, joining me is the greatest co-host of all time, ladies and gentlemen. It is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great on a Thursday night. Appreciate everybody for stopping in and joining me and Brett on another episode of And One.
No, absolutely. Let's get into it. Great night. I know it's just preseason, but our teams are actually playing each other tonight. Got a little Lakers-Bucks going on right now. Giannis and Bobby Portis are going crazy right now.
Is LeBron playing? Because you know he was complaining about going to Milwaukee for one night. So
that was the weirdest thing ever to me. Like, this is not the first time we've had to travel during preseason. Like, I think like Orlando and like San Antonio just played each other. I think like teams travel for preseason. You'll be all right, LeBron. I promise. But you know how we do, Mo? We start this off with the underrated player of the week. Reverse Enigma, thank you for joining us. LeBron with the tech in preseason. Didn't even know that was possible. That's fair. He's already in mid-season form with the referees. So, Mo, you know how we start things off? Got to pick an underrated player of the week, talk about some players who don't get enough love. So, why don't you start us off? Who's your underrated player or team this week?
my underrated player this week is former Spurs point guard Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson's one of those guys that I would call an overachiever. Not highly touted, but turned himself into a very good point guard, fit the Spurs system to perfection. He had a young Tim Duncan, an older David Robinson, got those guys into their spots. Just a good floor leader, good leader on both sides, talked on defense, a very vocal, solid leader, and a good player. Had a great touch. He had a really good running, almost like a hook shot, but it was a floater when he attacked the basket. So to me, a very underrated but solid career, Avery Johnson.
You know, I think that's a really good one. Can't even argue with that. He was absolutely great for his time in San Antonio. I'll say for mine, you know, I'm going to go to my bread and butter. I'm going to go to the Orlando Magic. And I'm going to go with a guy who I don't think people understand how good he is. Unfortunately, this is a guy who dealt with a lot of health issues. But I don't think people can truly comprehend how talented this guy is when he plays. I'm talking Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think there's anybody that can truly guard 1 through 5 at an elite level all the time. But Jonathan Isaac could very well give a lot of people a run for their money. He can give most a run for their money in the league. He certainly can hold his own 1 through 5 on any given possession. He's very strong. He's also very quick for his size. And I'm really hoping that he can stay healthy. I'm telling you right now, Mo, I believe in his defensive ability so much that I could see him ending up with a Defensive Player of the Year if he can just play 65 healthy games. He's that good, and this is an era with guys like Wembanyama, Anthony Davis, Giannis. No shortage of elite defensive talent. But you know what? I think if you play 65 games, Jonathan Isaac is going to win a Defensive Player of the Year one of these years.
No, I agree. He's capable. And look, I think he'll get the opportunity to shine more too, because much is expected of this young Orlando team. After the season they had last year, most of us project them as a unit, and more importantly, their star player, Paolo, to take another leap in his development. I think Jonathan Isaac, a guy like him with his versatility, he plays angles great too as well. He's a great one-on-one defender, but he's a great team defender. Terrific at showing and recovering, terrific at coming from the weak side. He is a 3, but he has the wingspan of somebody much bigger. And I think people underestimate that. I actually agree with you. He has a shot if he can play 60 plus games to have a real shot of being DPOY. I will say this though, on his own team, he might get some competition from a guy like Jalen Suggs. They have a lot of terrific wing defenders on that team, and I don't think that was done by accident. I think what Orlando's going to try to do is they're going to try to lock you down, and instead of playing fast, even though they're a younger team, I think they're going to try to play into the 90s.
No, I could see it, and you know what? The Paulo Banchero could be the Magic's version of Carmelo Anthony. Need a bucket and a half court, let that guy cook in a phone booth, and see what he can create for you. I saw that comparison that actually was our good friend Eric from Hoops Temple commented on a post, and it was comparing a young Paulo Banchero to a young Carmelo, and I thought it was interesting because maybe Carmelo's a better natural scorer, but I don't know how far off they are as actual players.
I'm not so sure that it's weird, right? Because in some ways they're very similar. They're obviously 3s, but they're bigger than your average 3s. Like they're almost tweeners. They're too big for most 3s to try to handle, especially in the post. So they're both unique that way. I think Melo maybe is more of a natural scorer, but I'm not so sure that Paolo isn't more physically gifted overall.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, like, okay, Melo's I think is the better pure scorer, but Paolo's a slightly more willing passer, and defense when they're young probably about the same. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting comparison of comparing young Melo and young Paulo here. So I'm definitely excited to see the next year of his development. My MVP Paulo hopes are not dead yet, so I'll take it.
I am too.
So, and I want to talk a little about preseason too. I was going to ask you real quick, Mo, because today we're just going to have fun. We're going to get into these GM surveys. But before we go there, has anybody in the preseason caught your eye so far? Like any young rookie or...
I mean, I actually think some of the young rookies have stood out a little bit, but I've really been looking at some of the veterans where they've changed addresses, and the guy that nobody's talking about, because I think so many people think he doesn't have as much basketball left in him, but I think Chris Paul has plenty of basketball left in him. I'm not talking about basketball left in him in terms of he's going to be an all NBA performer, but do I think Chris Paul can be an effective floor general for a young San Antonio Spurs team? Absolutely. I think he's going to make them better. I think he's going to bring out the best version of Wemby on both sides of the floor. I'm excited to see the chemistry that they're already developing early. And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, barring a major injury, I think the San Antonio Spurs are going to, at a minimum, they're going to be a play-in team.
I think the only thing preventing them from that, and not development of youngsters is the one thing, but in general, on-court play, I actually love the chemistry between CP3 and Wemby in such a short time, too. I agree with that 100%. I think that team really just has a Jeremy Shohan issue. Wemby did not shoot great in his first preseason game, but a lot of that was it just seemed that what are other teams doing, and you already saw the strategy. I'm not going to put my best shot blocker on Wemby. I'm going to put him on Jeremy Shohan because he's not going to threaten me at all with his jump shot. So anytime Wemby decides to come crashing into the paint, there's a help side, shot blocker waiting for him. So I think it's a realistic possibility this first go to the playoffs, but they just need a more consistent outside threat. Try like Zach Collins out there, for example.
Yeah, I don't know if starting Shohan works because he's he can't shoot. He's not a natural scorer. He's a good. He's one of those guys that does a lot of things really well, but he doesn't do any one thing great. I don't know if you want that guy in your starting unit, especially if somebody can cheat. His man can cheat off of him and help out on Wemby. I think you always want multiple threats on the floor to allow Wemby to operate more one-on-one.
No, that's fair. I want to shout out my own youngster real quick. He got off to a rough start in game one. He looks much better tonight. I'm talking to AJ Johnson. I watched his game. He is so quick that he's able to get to all the spots that he wants to. And I think his issue right now is he's got to just learn to take what the defense gives him and just figure out how defenses are playing him in general. But overall, that burst was there. We saw it. I think it was Gabe Vincent tried to have a foot race with him in transition, and he just got dusted. He's blowing by guys in the half court. The issue is he only wants to go to the rim, and defenses are ready for that. So overall, I think he shows a lot of great feel and potential for the game. And I'm excited to see his development in year one. I don't expect a lot of, minutes during the regular season. Probably a lot of time with the G League, the Herd. I actually might try to go see him a couple times out there. They're only like an hour away from me. But overall, he's shown me some potential and physical tools that I'm like, cool, we can build on that. Otherwise, non-Bucks, Reed Shepherd looks awesome, man. That man might win Sixth Man of the Year and Rookie of the Year this year.
He is just a natural baller, point blank, period. He doesn't even look like a rookie when he's out there playing.
And he was so funny. I love watching him. This man would hit every single shot except the easy ones. His 2 missed shots in the last game were finger rolls, and he just left them short. But he just looks like such a natural out there, and I know it's a long shot. He's a dark horse, but if he stays in that 6-man role all year, I wouldn't be shocked if he's at least in the discussion for that award at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You know what the interesting thing about going into this season is that I feel like Wemby is literally a candidate in every category, right? Wemby's a category. He's in the candidate for DPOY. He's going to be a candidate for, I think, MVP. He's going to be a candidate for most improved player because he will be better than he was in year one. Trust. That's how versatile and gifted a player he is. And so, yeah, look, I'm excited to see all the rookies. I'm focusing a lot on the second-year players. I'm also looking at new, old faces and new places. I watched some of the Knicks. I think Towns and Brunson are developing a good chemistry in the 2-man game, which is going to help them out even more so as the season develops. My only concern with the Knicks, and it was the same concern I had with them last season, to be fair, I don't think they lack talent when it comes to guys who can defend at a high level. I don't think they lack guys who are willing to take big shots. What I think they lack is I don't know if they have enough shooting overall, because who a pure shooter on that the Knicks where you're like, don't leave him open or else. I don't think they have a pure shooter. OG's a capable shooter. Bridges is a capable shooter. The funny thing is, I'd make the case the best shooter in the Knicks is Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, my concern with the Knicks is Tom Thibodeau. But it's not necessarily
the enemy from within.
Yeah, like we were talking about on the morning show. That's really my biggest concern, because you look at the Knicks depth chart. This is not a deep basketball team. So last year, you could tell the minutes weighed on them. We get to the final stretch, and now OG's out. He misses the playoffs. Jalen Brunson's banged up. Mitchell Robinson's hurt. If they do that again this year, I'm just not sure that they have the depth to really supplant these guys. Because last year it was, injury? All right, Dante, get in here. Josh Hart, you're in too. and they just had overall it seemed much better depth. Now I think their starting five can compete with anybody. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. I just think Tibbs really has to, and even if it requires you sacrificing some wins in the regular season here and there, you got to make sure you're running these young guys out. Don't run your entire starting lineup 40 minutes. Who cares if you lose on a random Tuesday in Detroit? Let it go.
Right. I think everything the Knicks do, they're built for the postseason. And if they go into the postseason healthy, look, I think they're one of three teams that could be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think obviously the defending champions are one. I think it's a toss-up. I actually think, even though they're older, I think the Bucks. I trust the Bucks more than I do the Sixers. I do. And look, chemistry does matter. You can add Paul George to Joel Embiid, but that doesn't mean they're going to have a natural chemistry. And you also have to factor in that Maxey has established himself as an all-star. Look, he's got team goals. Let's be realistic. This is the NBA. There's team goals, and then there are individual personal goals. You think Maxey wants to not make the all-star team again? Of course he does. I think he's taking that next step. I've said this before, and I've said it to other Sixer fans. You want a legit chance at winning a title before Joel Embiid ages out? I think you have to make Maxey more of a focal point. If Paul George arrives there, you cannot turn Tyrese Maxey into your third guy. He can't be the third option. I would argue that to get the best out of Embiid in the postseason, make Maxey your number one in the regular season.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if anything, just to keep him healthy, ride on more on Maxey in the regular season. You don't need him
exactly
banged up into the postseason again. But
you bring up one more thing, right? We are talking about a 35-year-old Paul George. Look, the same rules apply. You can't play this guy 38, 40 minutes a night. Not if you want him to be impactful for you in the postseason.
And one more guard that I think it looked like they're about to have a big breakout season and could be a very good most improved candidate also is, everybody's excited about the Pistons and Cade Cunningham, and rightfully so. But honestly, I think Jaden Ivey has looked like the best Piston on the court so far in preseason. He's quick. He's decisive. He's shooting the ball well. Offensively speaking, there's just nothing that he really hasn't been able to do so far. I think that this Pistons team in general is just going to be a much better basketball team than last year. Not a very high bar to set, but just de facto when it comes to watching guys like Jaden Ivey and Cade, now they have real spacing. I think this Pistons team is going to be like a 28-30 win team, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you won 14 games last year,
it is everything. It is everything. I said this on TikTok maybe sometime last week. There is a different kind of pressure you feel if you're a player like Cade Cunningham, knowing you're an all-star caliber player. You're the best player, or at least one of the two best players on your team. If you're one of the two best players on a 14-win team, you absolutely have pressure. And the pressure, you just brought it up. The pressure is you want to win 28 to 30 games to gain respectability for your franchise, to give your fan base some kind of hope, to let your front office know that there is an end game with these guys that you drafted. They are developing. They are showing signs. And I would just offer this. They kind of project Cade as the number one. I think you hit on something. Maybe if they made Jaden Ivey the number one, at least in terms of scoring, and made Cade his number two, I think there might be more floor balance overall, because Ivey is a natural scorer, and he is a blur to stay in front of.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch those two attack because they do it in different ways. Because Cade's a bigger guard, so I'm watching him try to back everybody down, and Jaden Ivey's just going right past everybody, and there's just nothing people can do about it.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I also like Jalen Duren. I think Jalen Duren is a steal. I think he's only going to get better. I'm expecting for him to improve and be more impactful on the defensive end, but offensively, he is just a dog. He is relentless at pursuing the basketball, a bundle of energy. I just think if they can translate some of that energy to defense, and he can be more impactful defensively, that's going to make them better overall. Like he is raw talent. Period.
I think he'll be much better in general. Just it was so clutch getting guys, and these are all overlooked additions, like guys like Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr. And those aren't going to move any needles in the regular season or any headlines, but the reality is that's exactly what the Pistons needed. This is a team with a ton of good finishing on it, but if I put 5 good finishers and no good shooters on the court, how effective is that finishing when I can just pack the paint? And the only guy I have to worry about hitting a 3 is Isaiah Stewart. So I love the Pistons move, and I'm looking forward to it. I'll be trying to tune into quite a few Pistons games just because I think they'll be entertaining this year. Jaden Ivey and Kane with better floor balance. Woo!
I agree. I think they did something also very smart. You mentioned Tim Hardaway. Don't forget they got Tobias Harris. So I think that was, remember, that's a team that if you looked at their core guys, the ones that they've drafted in the last couple of seasons, they're a college team. This is a very young core. So I think adding some vets that can do nothing but rub off of them, not just on the floor, but in the locker room, how they carry themselves. Sometimes it can be a maturity thing. So I think the vets, along with getting some chemistry with your young core, I think the needle's pointed in the right direction. I'm hoping that they win 30 games or more. I think that would be great. That would be not just being respectable, but that means you're taking a step towards being a competitive team, maybe next season for a playoff spot. So we'll see.
Yeah, and right before we get into the surveys, Mo, I made a statement. I kind of touched on it earlier, but I wanted to kind of run it back and see, because I was in a discussion and this one guy was trying to debate me if he said LeBron can guard in his prime. So in like Miami, all 5 positions at an elite level. It didn't matter who you put on the court, he could guard them. And I disagreed. I said he couldn't guard elite centers at an elite level. Like he can only match up against certain guys at an elite level, like
finesse centers.
So, like I said, do you think the statement that I made, because I'm curious, is true that there really isn't anybody that's going to be able to match up every position at an elite level?
What, that LeBron could guard? He couldn't guard every position. I don't know. Were you making the case that he couldn't guard every position?
No, I said he could guard every position, but the debate was, I was told that he was trying to argue that he could guard every position at an elite level.
No, he couldn't. Look, you watch the Heat when they put them together. What LeBron had going for him, who were the best centers in the Eastern Conference? He was going. Remember, one of their chief rivals was the Bulls. I can guard Noah. You can guard Noah. Noah's not an elite center. As even a prime Dwight Howard, I wouldn't call an elite. Not in terms of, he didn't have an offensive game. Dwight Howard, so much of what he was, it was about his freakish athleticism, but he didn't have a great post game. I think LeBron was very good at guarding the centers that he had to face, but it's not like he could guard a Joel Embiid or he could guard a Joker. I don't care if it was 2013. Any version of LeBron couldn't guard either one of those guys. Those are elite centers. If you're guarding Roy Hibbert, I'm not giving you credit for that.
The hilarious part is he named 3 names, and the first couple they're like, see, he guarded Dirk Nowitzki, and my counter was, I watched an entire series where he actively avoided guarding.
He avoided Dirk, right? He didn't guard Dirk.
Want that.
He didn't want none of that.
It's like, then it was, he guarded Tim Duncan. I was like, no, he guarded Tiago Splitter so he could play weak side rim protector on Tim Duncan and Crew. But the third name he actually said was he guarded Roy Hibbert. Like, Roy, like, demoralized Roy Hibbert. Like, Parawantic guarded Roy Hibbert perfectly fine. I'm not moved by Roy Hibbert.
And I am not trying to kill Roy Hibbert. He was in this little 3 or 4 year window a really good defensive center. But again, look at the names that he pointed out. Come on, man. The fact that you're pointing out those names, you know better. You know better. Stop it.
Can't wait for Tim Hardaway Sr. to come on and complain about Kane and JD Bickerstaff holding back Tim Hardaway Jr. That is one thing that'll be interesting to watch because we've seen Tim Hardaway Sr. come out and make public statements if he thinks his guy's getting held back. So that will be interesting because I wouldn't doubt if he tried to make a statement and Tim Hardaway Jr. did not have a long stay in Detroit.
Well, if Senior says a little too much, he might cost Junior a job. So if I'm Junior, I would tell Senior, chill, man. Like I've had a good career, Pop, but I'm a rotation player. I'm a streaky shooter. When I'm on, I get playing time. When I'm off, I'm riding the bench. Look, if he was in a horrible slump last year, it was so bad that the Mavericks literally had no problem just taking him out of rotation. I mean, he was done. And look, that's kind of Tim Hardaway Jr. He is incredibly streaky. I've seen him go 8 for 9 from 3. I've seen him go 8 for 10, and then I'm seeing him go 0 for 8 and 0 for 9. It's just who he is.
I'd say nothing like exemplified that more than the playoffs last year where he just went cold and then randomly had like that 6 for 10 game. Went cold, and he randomly, like in the finals, had like a 7-3 game, and that was about it for him. Let's get into these surveys, Mo. Let's see what the GMs around the league think. So I think this first one's an easy one. Which team will win the 2025 NBA Finals? What team do you think they have number 1?
I'm assuming they have the Celtics number 1.
83% say the Celtics. At number 2, actually, yeah, I actually like this one. At number 2, they have the Oklahoma City Thunder.
You know what? I don't have a favorite in the West, but I think if I was going to have a favorite, and we talked about this in the morning show, I have no problem with anybody that wants to make the case that Oklahoma City should be favored to come out of the West. They have every element that you need to go on a title run. You've got a dominant wing scorer in SGA. You've got a terrific number 2 scorer who's only going to get better in J-Dub. Then you have Chet, who I think he's going to get better this year. Not to mention, they just added Alex Caruso, another 3-and-D dog, to go with Lou Dort, the 3-and-D dog they already had. And then, of course, they went out and got a big man to give them some physicality. I just think they have every element you need. So if somebody tells me they should be favored, I won't argue that. I just think the West is so crazy, it will literally come down to matchups again.
Yeah, and by the way, I got to admit, I saw Shea's shooting form. Oh my goodness, that looks so smooth this year. We just genuinely might see the best version of Shea we've ever seen. His pull-up shooting form, it looks so much smoother than last year. He just looked absolutely incredible. I'm not sure how much I like Chet Holmgren's new shooting form, but I kind of have to let the results speak for themselves on that one. But I know they complained it was too slow last year, but now his shooting form almost reminds me of if they took Josh Giddey's shooting form and gave it to Chet Holmgren. Like, the form itself looks awkward, and I'm not a fan. But the third team that they have on here, and number 3, Dallas Mavericks.
I was a fan of what the Mavericks did last season, but my gut instincts tell me what they did last year was more of a great run versus the start of them being one of the dominant teams in the West. I don't think they are. I think they're going to be very good. I think they're going to be right there, But if you told me Dallas was going to be 100% healthy in the playoffs and the Memphis Grizzlies were going to be 100% healthy in the playoffs, I would pick Memphis over Dallas.
No, that's fair. I think that was more of a one-off. I could see them making multiple more deep runs, but I don't know if I'd pick them as the third best team.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
So this next one's fun. Who do you think the GMs will win the MVP award?
I'm going to say at the top of their list, they're going to have either SGA, Luka. Probably a few of them have Wemby.
Yeah, I'd say you nailed it. Number 1, SGA. Number 2, Luka. And then a 3-way tie for third with Embiid, Jokic, and Tatum. All receiving votes. Okay, this is kind of hilarious, actually. Giannis, down. Could see it. Anthony Edwards, Timberwolves getting the 1 seed. Could see it. Jaylen Brown. I like Jaylen Brown. I think he's a phenomenal talent, but I don't think he's a regular season MVP kind of guy. He's going to show up in all the big moments, but I don't think he's the guy that's going to put up the counting stats necessarily in order to reach that MVP caliber.
I agree. Look, I'm a fan of Jaylen Brown. I feel about the Jaylen Brown Tatum situation very similar to the Warriors. There's no one is confused in the fact that Steph was their best player when they won their first title. But Iguodala seemed to make all the big shots. And so what did he do? He ended up winning finals MVP. But if you went back and you looked at Iguodala's statistics versus Steph's statistics, you would have been like, why wasn't Steph MVP again? I'm only saying that to say this. I thought Brown seemed to be more consistent in the finals in terms of his shooting, because if you look at every other stat, Tatum was the better overall player. He just didn't shoot well in the finals, and he defended as well as Brown did. So I still think Tatum's their best player. I know a lot, for whatever reason, a lot of people have certainly flipped the script and they've made me have to defend Tatum versus guys who I'm a big Jalen Brunson fan. I think you are too, but I think we both agree. I don't think Jalen Brunson is better than Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think a lot of people miss the point as to why Jaylen Brown is that wide open. It all starts with Tatum. Even when he was off against the Dallas Mavericks, for example, they were hard doubling him anytime he went to the paint, and he was more than willing to kick out. So I think a lot of people just miss the fact, his shooting percentage was terrible. He didn't shoot well,
right?
But he garnered so much attention throughout that playoff run that just by him being on the court and being a willing passer kind of just blew open the Celtics offense because of how much attention. Because you can't leave him one-on-one. If he gets hot, you can easily flip the game around. So, yeah, I agree. I think Tatum's the best player on the Celtics, and I think you can make some debate for Jaylen Brown, but I don't think there's much of a debate for Jaylen Brown at the same time.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Jaylen Brown, I think he's a perennial all-star. He might even make a couple of more all-NBA teams. And who's to say maybe Jaylen Brown is one of those guys that's very good in the regular season, but he makes his bones in the postseason. I would rather have that on my resume than the regular season.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then this next one's also, I think, pretty easy. If you were starting a franchise and can sign any player in the NBA today, who are you signing?
I'm signing Wemby.
So are the GMs. They have Wemby 1, 2-way tie for second between Shea and Jokic.
Yeah, I'm good with those two. Yeah, if I'm a GM and I couldn't get the number 1 and they took Wemby, I wouldn't hold my head down if I ended up with Shea or Joker. I'm still going to be a happy GM. I can make that work.
No, absolutely. And the guy in third, Luka Doncic. So
I will say this. I find it a little interesting. Don't get me wrong. I get why you would take Wemby first. You're factoring his potential, not to mention his age, makes total sense. People like Giannis get lost in the shuffle. You almost forget. And it's funny because I put a post up, but it wasn't to point out a flaw, but I put a post up and somebody commented on it and said, "You think Giannis is going to have a bounce back year? He scored 30, I think it was 30 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists." And my point wasn't a bounce year in terms of his numbers. Can give you 30 in his sleep. I do. I'm talking a bounce back season in terms of what the Bucks look like overall. What he looked like overall when they're dominant defensively, when he's the best help a weak side defender in basketball at his height. I think the Bucks are dominant when they're dominant on defense, they're a title contender. Bottom line, that's how I feel. And it starts to me with Giannis. I get it. Yes, you had Drew Holiday, the point of attack, but you can have capable or at least solid point of attack defense. If your back line is active and they're vocal and they're switching and they're showing and recovering, or go old school, help the helper, then you're going to have a terrific rim protection across the board. I think Milwaukee will do that this season. I think Giannis is going to be a legitimate DPOY candidate this season.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think so too, and I think we got better. I think Gary Trent competes harder on defense than Malik Beasley. I think Damian Lillard competed on defense last year. Wasn't always pretty, but you know what? At least he was giving effort and trying. So that's really all I can ask. Hey, today he had a great hustle play. He got in front of LeBron and slowed him down enough for a Giannis chase down. So
I love that. And look, Gary Trent, a lot of people aren't talking about it. You and I have talked about it. I think he's the steal of the offseason. I do. I'm not going to dwell on it. I don't understand what Pelinka's thinking. I'll leave it alone. But Jesus Christ, what do the Lakers need? Well, we need some shooting, and we need another perimeter defender. This guy must be too expensive. No, he's not. No, he's not. And Milwaukee gets him. Look, like I said, hats off to Milwaukee and their front office for just being really smart and being able to get him. I think Gary Trent is going to be so big for you guys on both ends of the floor.
Oh, no, that's fair. I didn't understand that either with the Lakers. It's interesting. They're relying on guys who apparently have been going to break out for 5 years now with Reddish, Wood, and of course you got D'Lo, Reeves. But in just terms of like win now help, like it doesn't feel like that.
Exactly.
The Lakers brought in that much. Like you get a healthy Gabe Vincent. Like depends on how much that moves you, I guess.
Right. Well, you just brought up a great point. Cam Reddish, he has these moments every season. Every season he's been in the league, Brett, there's been a week or two where you're like, Jesus Christ, this kid is talented. He's about to break out. And then he kind of falls back into his shell, and he's never heard from the rest of the season. I think he's going to always be one of those players that shows you just enough to stay in the NBA, but I don't think he's ever going to. The idea that he's going to fulfill his promise and one day become a star, I think that's done. I think if you're a really good coach on a contender, maybe you recalibrate what you think he is. You go, you know what? Maybe we can make him into a very good or capable 3-and-D guy, but he's not going to be a star. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember everybody getting hyped when he had that one random 17-point game against the Suns, and then didn't hear from him for the rest of the year. But this next category I think is super interesting. Which player forces the opposing coaches to make the most adjustments?
Honestly, I think it's Joker.
Joker is third, with number one being Luka and Steph at 2.
I could get what. Look, Steph is all over the place. You're chasing him off screens. He has constant motion. I understand that, but you know what? I'm not going to argue with that. I'm just going to say Steph was relatively healthy all last year. And all I'm going to say, if it was that impactful year in and year out, they wouldn't have been watching the playoffs.
Then, of course,
I'm
the
just being
last
real.
two names are just Giannis and Joker. I mean, Giannis and Embiid, not Joker.
Oh, that's a get. Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that.
I'll say, and then this is another one. I love this. Which player is most likely to have a breakout season? They have a lot of names because there's a lot of ties here.
Sure.
You got Jalen Williams at number 1. Then we got a 3-way tie for second between Evan Mobley. This one, it doesn't make sense to me. Ja Morant and Victor Wembanyama. Ja Morant doesn't make sense to me because he already broke out like 2 years ago.
Right. He's re-breaking. He's re-breaking.
Like, what consists as a breakout season for Ja? Is he going for like 30 and 10? Like, I just don't get it. I watched this guy break out before everything happened. Like, what? Where's the breakup coming?
Yeah, I love that. Look, I agree about Jay Williams, right? If J Dub takes the next step in his development on both floors, both ends of the floor as a player, that's just going to solidify the Thunder as being the front runners in the West.
And then the other 3 names tied for third: Paulo Banchero, Cade Cunningham, and Brandon Miller.
I like 2 of those names. I'd replace Miller with I'm going to go with Scotty Barnes. No, and I you know what it is? I'm going off of history and off of instinct. I'm saying I think Scotty Barnes is going to be playing more meaningful basketball than Brandon Miller. That doesn't mean Brandon Miller won't have a terrific season, because I think he may. But you and I both know, are we gonna see any of the Hornets games on TV? We're not gonna see them on TV. We're not watching them. Maybe if I guess on NBA TV you might zing in on one of their games. And I still don't think Brandon Miller is even the best player on that team. When he's healthy, you and I both would agree LaMelo's their best player. But I do think Brandon Miller will have a good year. I just don't think it'll be more impactful than Scotty Barnes.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm actually proud of this next one because the best point guard in the NBA, I have them as in this exact order on my top 30 players going into next year list. So, yeah, we have Luka, SGA, Curry, Brunson. Now, I've gone on record saying I would not be shocked if this year Jalen Brunson was better than Steph Curry. I wouldn't be shocked if those 2 names flipped, and it's nothing to do with Steph's, not being great. It's the fact that he is 35, and Jalen Brunson is just entering his prime. So I'm not saying it's even going to happen, but I think there's a real chance that, Jalen Brunson just has a better overall year than Curry this year.
I think I'm going to approach that the same way I approached the Brandon Miller, Scotty Barnes, or, the breakout season thing. I think that barring any kind of major injury, Jalen Brunson is going to be playing meaningful basketball. I hate saying this because he's still playing at such a high level. I want to see Steph playing basketball that matters late in the season into the postseason, as well as KD, LeBron, of course, and others. I don't think, as they're currently constructed, Golden State's going to be playing meaningful basketball. And so I think that's where Brunson can surpass him, because Steph's going to be playing on a team that looks like they're spiraling towards the lottery, and Brunson's going to be trying to win the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how that all plays out. I actually disagreed with this one. And also, this is what bothers me a little about GM polls. So the best shooting guard in the NBA, first off, SGA's on here. Is he a point guard or is he a shooting guard? And Luka, by the way, is on here for like 4 different positions, which I'm like, dude, pick one. But
I don't mind that so much, because I don't think he's a point guard. And I don't think SGA is a point guard. Let's start out this way. Luka's ball dominant. When you ball dominant, I guess by default now they call you a point guard. LeBron's ball dominant, so he a point guard? He's a point guard. I think Luka's called. He handles the ball the most. But he's a ball dominant player. I don't think I don't think Luka could play off the ball. Some guys can't. When he doesn't have the ball in his hand, it's not like he flashes to the basket or anything. He didn't do anything. So I get it. I would rather just say that Luka and SGA for sure. Whether we say point guard or two guard, if you said who are the top 5 guards, just use the word guards, they would be 1 and 2, right? No matter what, they'd be 1 and 2. And think about this. What two guard is better than Luka right now in the NBA? What two guard? You're not going to say Ant because Luka beat Ant on one leg last year. So it's not Ant. And if it's not Ant, it's not anybody. I think the 2 best guards, I'll do it this way, are Luka and SGA. You can flip a coin on who you have first or second.
Oh, no, for sure. I completely agree that Luka is the best guard in the league, just, hands down. And SGA is definitely number 2. I don't know, it's just something that, like, when I see the same, 3 names continue to pop up in these, polls for, different positions, I'm just kind of like, dude, I want to see different names for some of these positions. I acknowledge Luka's the best guard, but, he's on here for small forward. He also receives some votes for, power forward. So I'm just like, I'd prefer to see, some other guys get some love in these polls, but I get it. Luka's absolutely phenomenal, can play multiple positions. So
the man is what, 6'7", 6'8", about 235, 240. He can literally do it all, and he does it all at his own pace.
So I'm just gonna knock out 3, 4, and 5 because it is SGA, Steph, and Luka. Number 1 and 2, Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker. I actually think in the year 2024, I think Devin Booker is an overall better player than Anthony Edwards. I think Anthony Edwards will be on the better team and the higher seeded team, but I think that Devin Booker overall is a better scorer, playmaker. I think they're close on defense. I think there are things that Anthony Edwards does do better than Devin Booker. I think he gets to the rim. He's more explosive. I actually think that, at times he can take over games a little more than Devin Booker. But overall, Devin Booker's a more efficient better passer. He's a more efficient scorer from multiple levels. He's a better just general shooter. And I think his defense is just very underrated. That man competes hard, and he's actually very good at it. I think they're close, and I even have this in my own top 30 player rankings. And if you want to go the other direction, that's fine. But I think going into the year, I still think that Devin Booker has a slight edge over Anthony Edwards this year.
I kind of look at it very similar to the way you do. I think there's no question Book is a more polished scorer. It's more natural. I think Ant is obviously much more physically gifted. And he can be more imposing because of his physicality and his athleticism. But if you take Devin Booker and you kind of put him back into where he played the year they went to the finals, where he was just more of a 2 guard, he can facilitate, but he's more of a 2 guard, and he can attack more from a catch and attack position. He becomes that much more devastating in trying to cover him. I actually have Devin Booker rated ahead of Ant in the sense that I just think he's a better, more polished, natural scorer. I think people were too quick to pull the trigger on Ant. Ant's going to get there. He's a star already. Whether or not he's going to be the face of the league, I think you have to remember that Luka's going to be part of that league. SGA is going to be part of that league. They're all in the same age group, and they're not going anywhere. And I'm not sure Ant just elevates over either one of them. So I have no problem with Book being there. And look, I actually think Phoenix, to me, I think Memphis is not going to be a surprise. I think Phoenix could be the surprise of the West this year. Not because they're going to be a lockdown defense, but I think they'll be able to get timely stops. I'm going to be more impressed with just how much more efficient their offense looks with a real point guard running the show.
Hey, Ian, thank you for joining us. People forgot about Booker. Has all this. No, that's absolutely fair.
Right.
And, I think people will sometimes overlook what, like, and if we're being honest, I think he benefited a lot from a really just facing some weakness to start out in the playoffs. And, credit to him, he still has to take advantage. But, like, Bradley being in the first round, being your perimeter defender, you go into the next round and he just absolutely cooks the Nuggets. They just seem slow and off all series. He was great and he took advantage of all that, but I think he just got a huge boost from that Nuggets series. Nuggets from that Sun series, and that perimeter defense was just so weak that it made it so easy at times.
I thought he dominated. He completely dominated Jamal Murray. He dominated him. I thought he got into Jamal Murray's head, and then I think he dominated Jamal Murray physically in a way that we hadn't seen anybody do in a long time, because Jamal world, he never lacks confidence, and I thought it literally looked like Ant took his confidence away from him.
Mitchell is also pretty close to Ant. I'd say it's fair to say he's better now. I think people are forgetting about D-Mitch, too. That's actually another name that's kind of slept on in these conversations. Like, I'll give D-Mitch all the credit in the world.
I'm a Donovan Mitchell fan, but I guess I'll sound like I'm not, because I'll say it. I don't think Donovan Mitchell can be the best player on a title contender. I just don't. I think there's a ceiling to where he can lead you. I think for him to go to the next level, he's going to have to play with somebody who's as good or better than he is.
I'll say who is the best power forward in the NBA? I think that one's pretty easy.
Al Horford.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's the best player in NBA history right there. I'll say 77% of the votes, Giannis, 7%, Kevin Durant. And then there's like a hodgepodge of players that are tied. Honorable mentions. See, Reverse Enigma agrees. I'll say other guys that receive votes. Anthony Davis. Domantas Sabonis, even though he's more of a center. Okay.
Right.
Draymond Green. In the year 2024, yeah, sorry, GMs, you kind of got that one wrong.
Draymond should take great pride in that he got that vote, though, especially at this stage in his career.
It must have been the Warriors GM handing out that vote.
It was Dunleavy.
I'll say in the best center in the NBA, we got Joker, Embiid, of course, and number 3, Victor Wembanyama.
You know what? Here we go with Wemby again, Brett. Like, couldn't Wemby be the 3rd best center? Couldn't Wemby also be the 2nd or 3rd best power forward? Like I feel like, yes, he's going to play center. I just don't think he's only going to play center. You know what I mean? Like, I think at times they'll have him at 4, depending on what the matchups dictate. So I think Wemby's going to be all over the place, but wherever he is, he's going to be productive.
I think some of these other ones that are interesting to me when we get to the which rookie will be the best player in 5 years. This one was interesting to me because the GMs have Reed Sheppard as one, and rightfully so. Number 2, Stephon Castle, San Antonio. I know a lot of people were talking about Zachary there, and to be fair, looked great playing in preseason. Sar, I could absolutely see Cal being the 2nd best player in the draft, though. He looked absolutely terrific for the Spurs in that in the preseason so far as we've seen him. And yeah, learning from Chris Paul, I think he absolutely develops. He could very well develop into the 2nd best player in this draft.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. I actually agree with some of those. I think they're missing a couple of guys though. I can't get his name up. The young man for the Timberwolves.
Oh, Dillingham?
Yeah, look, some guys you can just see it and they have it. Dillingham has it. He's a bucket getter. He's a natural bucket getter. He's a ball player. he's going to do well in the NBA. He's going to have a very impactful and long career. I don't know if he's going to be a star, but I think he's going to be the kind of guy that helps you win. He's going to be a winning player.
Now, you know what did make me mad, Mo? This one, I told you on the morning show, there was one GM poll that legitimately made me so annoyed that I didn't look at them for the rest of the day. Ironically, it was Tuesday. I had a show with Kyle, and of course, he asked me about the GM poll. I'm like, I didn't read any of them. This one made me so annoyed. Who is the best international player in the NBA? Number 1, Nikola Jokic. Number 2, Luka Doncic. Number 3, Victor Wembanyama. I'm so sorry. Hold on. What? Wemby can be great. I have Wemby as the 7th best player in the NBA next year. I think highly of him. I think he'll be a top 10 player I think he'll be all NBA second team.
I'm not arguing with any of that.
I think that, are we forgetting that Giannis is once again going to be all NBA first team? And you can make a strong argument that not only is Giannis better than Luka Doncic, but you can make a legit case of him being better than Nikola Jokic. Now, granted, I have Jokic ahead of Giannis, to be fair.
But Jokic.
But just Jokic. I think he's a better basketball player than Luka Doncic. But that's annoying to me. Like, how do you underrate Giannis? Last year, he's the only person in history to have 30 points on over 60% true shooting while playing elite defense. He's the best two-way player in the league. It's not even close. Fine. It's probably closer. But I'm just kind of annoyed because I like Wemby. I like Wemby.
I'm a huge Wemby fan too.
But for the love of God, like where is Giannis? There's just no way you leave Giannis off this list.
It's funny because I feel like the GMs are kind of writing Giannis off. Like they're acknowledging that he's still a star, but they're kind of writing him off in a lot of these polls. He's in them, but they don't have him 1. You got Joker 1 because he's a 3-time MVP, because he's a finals MVP and a champion. Giannis is a 2-time MVP. He's also a finals MVP and a champion. He's also a winner of the Defensive Player of the Year award. He's also made multiple All-NBA defensive teams. The only guy that could be ahead of Giannis is Joker, and then it's Giannis. I have no argument with anybody telling me what they think Wemby's going to be, because I think he will be that in time. And I'm a fan of Luka's as well, but I don't have Luka ahead of Giannis. And for them to put him ahead of him, I'm guessing you're putting him ahead of Giannis because of his shooting and scoring ability. Yes, Luka is a more natural scorer than Giannis, but Giannis is the force of nature, and he impacts both sides of the floor consistently. I've told you this. I've told other people this. Sometimes I go, you know what? The notion that Giannis is trying to work on a 3 and he takes like 3 or 4 threes a game. If I was the head coach, I'd be like, you don't have to shoot the 3. You don't. But if you shoot free throws 70% or better, we're going to be back in the finals again. I don't care what he shoots from 3. That's irrelevant. But if he can shoot free throws at a 70% or better clip, because he's going to get to the foul line 12 or 13 times a game, the Milwaukee Bucks will make one more title run. That's how impactful Giannis is. I cannot put Luka ahead of that guy.
No, absolutely. And, there's over like 50 of these surveys, so we'd be here all day if we tried to hit them all. But I think there's one, Mo, that I think is a lot of fun, and it kind of proves a fun point. Which active player will make the best head coach someday?
Oh, I think it's Chris Paul.
He is number 1.
Yeah, I think it's Chris Paul. I'm telling you, 100%. I have not read any of the GM polls or none of that crap. But if you know, Chris Paul is going to be a terrific head coach. Now, he might be one of those head coaches like Jason Kidd was early in his career, where he knows what he's talking about, but his players might want to kill him. But he's going to be a terrific head coach.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because the rest of these names, people are going to be like, who? But it makes sense because most of your good retired player head coaches are the role players with the really high IQ. Number 2 on this list.
Point guards.
How many people would have said Garrett Temple? Like, that's not a name that's popping up on most people's lists for good head coaches. And like, number 3, actually, Mike Conley would probably pop up on quite a few people's radar.
I could see that.
But then we go to TJ McConnell and Fred VanVleet. But to me, the name Garrett Temple is so interesting because he does have such a high IQ. And that's just not a name when people are thinking future NBA head coach. People, I think, like underestimate like these role players with the super high IQs because those are the ones that make really good coaches. And I think Garrett Temple would make a hell of a coach.
I think that's interesting because Garrett Temple is one of those kind of guys that he has made the rounds in the NBA. I don't even know. I've lost count of how many different teams he's played for, but wherever he's gone, he's been respected and he's been beloved. And you can tell super high basketball IQ. Whenever you watch Garrett Temple on the floor, he's actually a solid player. But he's not naturally gifted. Everything he's done is through hard work and his high basketball IQ. So it does not shock me at all that the GMs or whoever the powers that be recognize that. Doesn't not surprise me at all that Garrett Temple would be on there. One more guy that I thought could be on there potentially. I can't remember. He just retired. You'll know who it is. He's a point guard, Brett. He's been on like 100 teams. Just retired. Man, what is his name?
Oh, Ish Smith.
Yes, there you go. See, I knew you would remember that. Ish Smith is very similar to Garrett Temple. It would not surprise me at some point, maybe a year or two, Ish Smith is on somebody's bench as an assistant coach working his way through the ranks.
James Johnson. Also receiving votes. There's one name in here, by the way, that
It's a
is
scary man.
mentioned that I did not agree with. And I'll save him for last because the rest of these are fine. So we got Harrison Barnes, Jalen Brunson, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, Tyus Jones, Kyle Lowry. The last name, Bradley Beal.
As a head coach?
Yeah, no.
I don't see that. I don't see that at all.
So, and Bradley Beal, he was just, I just don't think that man can be honest. That man just went on an interview and just went on an absolute, I don't know what to say, heater? Like, my favorite part, I don't know what's the worst. Like, first off, he comes out and says, yeah, my 2017 Wizards could have beaten my 2017 Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, you didn't even make it to the Cavaliers. What are you talking about?
That's
You had your chance.
funny. I think Bradley Beal, if I was going to say what he would be doing after his playing days, it would not surprise me if he ends up being a sports agent.
Yeah, no, I actually could very well see that. And of course, there's also him. He starts talking about, yeah, the Bucks wanted me, but I said no to going there because they were trying to trade Chris Middleton, and it just didn't feel right about trading somebody who helped win a championship the previous year. And I'm just kind of like, dog, no, we weren't trying to trade Chris Middleton. For you, like it just doesn't make sense. Like, I have no doubt that the Bucks did their homework on Bradley Beal. I have no doubt that happened. I'm like 100% sure that happened. I remember hearing about that. But the reality is, one, Chris Middleton's a free agent. I doubt you're going to convince, like, hey, how would you like to sign and trade to the Washington Wizards? Yeah, that'll really sell him. But
Chris Middleton's retiring.
also, I think our GM understands, and I think if you watch them, even when Beal was scoring his 30 a game and all that, you watch Chris Middleton play and you watch Bradley Beal play, and I think you'll learn real quick that Chris Middleton is just better at being a secondary piece on a winning roster. he didn't even need to win take away the finals for Chris Middleton, and you just look at their skill sets. Okay, is Bradley Beal a better pure scorer? Actually, ironically, he can score better in volume, but Chris Middleton's more efficient. Chris Middleton's also a better passer. He's also tries harder on defense. I think that Beal saying that the Bucks had interest, I think there definitely was, and we did our research. But I don't think that we were trading Chris Middleton for him. I don't think that was ever going to happen.
Do I think Bradley Beal's more talented than Chris Middleton? Yep. Do I think he's a better basketball player? I do not. I think that Chris Middleton plays a brand of basketball that helps you win. He's a winning player. Bradley Beal will be more touted. I'm not sure how many All-Star games Bradley Beal made. 5 or 6, somewhere in that range. And Middleton, I'm sure Chris has made a few, but not that many. But I think Chris Middleton is just a better sidekick to Giannis for what the Bucks want to do. And it's not like he's a little bit better defensively. He's much better. If the Bucks were going to make that move, the only way they would have been serious about it is if they were really confident that Bradley Beal could fit with what they do. I think they did their due diligence. A lot of Bradley Beal fans won't like this, but look, it's just a reality. For the most part of his career, he might be a really good guy, and I'm not saying he isn't, but as a basketball player, he's not a winning basketball player. I told everybody when he went to Phoenix and they teamed up and they were talking about what they were going to be, and I said they're going to be a first-round exit, and that's what they were. They didn't need a Bradley Beal. Phoenix has made a lot of bad moves since they lost to your Bucks in the finals. They made panic moves, the kind of moves that Joe Dumars made. They made panic moves. You should have kept Bridges. You should have kept Cam Johnson. Those two players who, while individually are not more gifted as Bradley Beal, they're better basketball players for what your team wanted to do in terms of winning. And Bridges showed you, at least with the Nets, even though they didn't win a title or anything, that he actually could elevate his scoring to where he was scoring around 20, 21 points a game. They made a panic move that they didn't have to. You could have kept Bridges, Cam Johnson with Book and went out and looked for another capable point guard. And I'm not knocking them going after Kevin Durant. They had a new owner. He wanted to make a splash move. He went after Kevin Durant. I just think when you go after an all-time great player like that, who's on the other side of 35, your window to getting the most out of him, that value, it's a 2-year window at best. And then you're going to have to make some tough decisions because you're not going to be able to afford to pay everybody.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Because I remember saying at the time, I was like, listen, I don't mind the Kevin Durant trade. I think KD still got some good years in him. It's the follow-up I'm worried about. How do you follow this up? You put the right team together around Booker and KD. This could be a title contender next year. And I had the same reaction as you. They got Beal, and I'm like, yep, they just slammed their own window shut. The conversation, who's going to guard them? Like yourselves? Like Bradley Beal taking contested middies for half the series and just absolutely clanking them off iron. Overall, I hope for the Suns' sake that maybe they each find their form, but I'm also not counting on it. I will say the addition of Tyus Jones,
it makes a big
deal. Out a ton. I'm watching Kevin Durant just get to his spot and wait for the ball instead of having to spend 10 seconds chiseling his way down to the block. And then, have to, rise up and fade because, listen, say what you want, but it's tiring to try to back somebody down to your spot. And now with Tyus Jones, I can run off-ball screens or play Kevin Durant off-ball, or KD can just go to the low block, post up, and know a guy like Tyus is looking for him. The issue with a guy like Bradley Beal, or even at times Devin Booker, is they get tunnel vision. So KD can go to the low block and post up, but D-Book and Bradley Beal already in their ISO dance.
Right. And don't forget, Tyus Jones allows KD sometimes to catch the ball and face you in the triple threat position. So he can either raise up or blow by you on the handle. It just gives you so much more options, and it makes you a lot more dangerous than having to bring the ball up all the time trying to create your own offense. I think Kevin Durant catching the ball with a live with the ability to go to his live dribble or just raise up is a much scarier cover. So I do think Tyus Jones going to be he's going to vastly improve that offense. He'll make them better. If you have three scorers of that level, even though I'm not the biggest Beal fan, do I give them to be honest with you, if they just had KD and Booker with a good point guard like Tyus Jones, I still give you a puncher's chance. If Bradley Beal can provide solid offense as a third option, they've got a legitimate puncher's chance. But like you, it's a puncher's chance. Do I favor Phoenix to come out of the West? I do not.
No. Another team, by the way, that I dislike their chances, and it genuinely because of the announcement they made today. Apparently, the Pelicans starting center is going to be Herb Jones is going to be mixing in playing power forward and center. So it sounds like we're running a lineup of DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Herb Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, your 13th seed New Orleans Pelicans.
Wait a minute. Herb Jones, 6'5", maybe 170 pounds, who's a terrific 3-and-D guy. I'm a huge fan. They're going to play him at center?
Yeah, apparently he's going to be mixing in between the 4 and the 5. And according to Shams, they're going to put him at center.
That doesn't make any sense. If you told me they were going to put Trey Murphy at center, I still would scratch my head, but that would make better sense. And Trey Murphy is a much bigger man. He's a full 6'9". I don't get that at all. That seems like you're literally setting up Herb Jones for failure, or to get injured banging with bigs.
Yeah, I think pretty much any big with any semblance of size just dominates that lineup. Like, Rudy Gobert isn't offensive dynamo, but that man would probably go and have a 20-20 game against that lineup just off offensive rebounds and putbacks.
If you want to play small, play small, but wouldn't it make better sense if you're going to play small that Zion would play center, since he at least, he's not long, but he has the physical strength to bang with bigger players?
Yeah. I remember saying this earlier. Just the Pelicans needed a center because Zion, I think can be a great help side defender, but he's not somebody you want to put in like the straight center position.
Agreed.
Herb Jones is too small. Trey Murphy's too small. They acquired Daniel Tice, but like Daniel Tice, serviceable, but not the guy you ideally want as your starting center. So, and they drafted UV Missy, I think his name is in the draft. And I don't think he'll be ready this year. So I think they needed a guy. Maybe they still get a guy. It's like maybe Walker Kessler comes to New Orleans, soon. But
that would be interesting. And don't forget, look, I think it's highly possible. They say it's not going to happen, but I think it's possible. I think Brandon Ingram, there's a chance he still gets moved.
Yeah, so overall, if the Pelicans do try this Herb at center lineup, I think they just get obliterated. Their only hope of winning games is just going to be forcing it like 57 turnovers a game and getting into transition, because they're just going to get out-rebounded by pretty much anybody. Even someone like DeAndre Ayton's probably going up and just dominating them on the boards, and that's saying a lot. I don't want to hate on DeAndre Ayton, but his motor is so bad. At times, he gets so disengaged so quick. And I think that's one of his biggest problems. But, yeah, even a guy who's, disengaged half the time like Ayton, who just has the size and touch, he'd probably go pretty crazy on the boards against that lineup, too.
I could see that. And look, I've never questioned Ayton's talent. I've just questioned his appetite to compete. That's all.
Yeah, he just doesn't. There's guys that are locked in and just love to play ball, and at times you just don't see that from me, and you don't see the hustle, the will, the desire to win, which is shocking because he was such a key piece in that 2021 playoff run. And then I don't know what happened. He just fell off everything after that. I thought Ayton was going to be emerge into a top 5 center in the league. He had the offense. He looked like he had the touch. I thought he was going to develop a nice little free throw line midi, some post moves, and the defense looked like it was coming along nicely. And then for whatever reason, just it completely fell off a cliff, and Ayton's development just stagnated from there, and it's unfortunate. He's the guy that makes me mad the most. There are guys that are just bad because they're just not good players. Ayton makes me mad in the same way that Vince Carter made people mad.
Oh, God.
I know you can be better than what you are. You're choosing not to be. And that's the frustrating part. When I see somebody with immense talent and potential, like a DeAndre Ayton, like someone like a Vince Carter, but they choose to settle for being either mediocre or good when they can be great, I'm telling you right now, nothing drives me more crazy than that.
Partner, you took the words right out of my mouth. I look at a guy like Ayton, and I feel like more times than not, he does just enough. Just enough. He's not going to do anything more than just enough, and that drives me crazy because you're correct. He is skilled, he is talented, and yet that thing you need to function is lacking in his chest. It's not there. It just isn't there. And that's disappointing because as a fan of the league, I would love it. I root for young players to come up and challenge the established stars because sometimes it's good to challenge the established stars. It pushes them. It makes them elevate their greatness, right? You challenge a guy like Ayton, and he actually goes the opposite direction. He doesn't respond well to being challenged. And guys like that, and you brought up the perfect name for that, Vince Carter. That drove me crazy about Vince Carter. It drove me crazy about him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's all I had for us this week, Mo. Is there any other questions or topics you wanted to add? Or
no, we had fun. Look, the GM stuff, some of it was wild, but to be fair, a lot of it was accurate. Totally enjoyed it. I'm like you. I am enjoying this NBA preseason. I'm so excited for the regular season. And I would just tell everybody that's watching N1 right now, who will be watching N1 in the future and at some point on TikTok, we're going to be doing some lives. We're going to have some fun with the NBA and be doing some lives, and we hope you guys join us.
I will tell you guys right now, because I can tell you guys what to expect next week, actually. So next week, Mo and I are going to do our predictions. Standings, seedings, awards. Hell, we might even do all NBAs just for fun. Just for some fun predictions. Maybe even do a way
prediction.
Finals predict. So overall, next week is going to be the week of predictions on the N1 podcast. And then you did mention it, lives. Well, the 24th, the week after, is the first episode of N1 that's actually going to be on during some basketball games. So, I know for sure Mo and I will be going live and doing a live watch along of Thunder Nuggets. It's the 9 o'clock game. We'll be able to do the whole thing. It'll be an absolutely great time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Look forward to it as well.
Let's say. So, anyway, I definitely appreciate everybody who hopped in. Ian, Reverse Enigma, anybody, thank you. Thank you so much. We definitely appreciate you. Definitely check us out next week for Prediction Week, and then the week after for the lives. Watch along. We thank you very much and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.